For 124 years, the most powerful government ever built ran without ever opening a single citizen's paycheck. No income tax, no withholding, no April deadline, and yet, somehow, a continental empire was financed. Wars were fought, and an entire nation was stitched together from ocean to ocean. Tonight, we open a file that has nothing to do with tombs or temples, and everything to do with a different kind of ancient text, a founding document written in 1787 that was deliberately built to make direct taxation almost impossible. We'll trace the paper trail, the acts, the rebellions, the court rulings, and one amendment ratified in 1913 that rewrote the entire relationship between a citizen and their government forever. The evidence is documented, the dates are verified. The question is why it took over a century to unravel. Open the file, File 1, the founding safeguard. In 1787, delegates gathered in Philadelphia with the country drowning in debt. $54 million owed by the federal government, $25 million more owed by the states. The document they wrote gave Congress the power to tax. But buried in Article 1, Section 9 was a safeguard. Direct taxes had to be divided among the states by population, not by wealth. It sounds like a technical detail. It was actually a wall built specifically to make taxing individual income almost unworkable. And for the next century, it held. File 2. The Tariff Engine. From 1790 to 1860, records show tariffs, taxes collected on imported goods at the docks, generated roughly 90% of all federal revenue. Economic historian Douglas Irwin has confirmed this figure through Treasury records. No income tax, no IRS, just customs officers at a handful of harbors. It worked because it was simple and because a young agricultural nation imported almost everything it manufactured. File 3. The Whiskey Rebellion. In 1791, the federal government tried something different, a direct excise tax on whiskey. On the frontier, whiskey wasn't a luxury, it was currency. The result was documented armed rebellion. Tax collectors tarred and feathered, homes burned. By 1794, 7,000 armed farmers had gathered near Pittsburgh. President Washington personally led 13,000 militia west, the only sitting president in American history to command troops in the field. The rebellion collapsed. But the lessons stuck. Direct taxes on Americans were political poison. The tax was repealed in 1802 and would not return for decades. File 4. The land behind the curtain. Tariffs were not the whole story. The federal government also held something no European power had: unimaginable stretches of public land sales, documented under acts passed in 1785, 1800, and 1820, generated roughly 14% of federal revenue on average, and in boom years, far more. In 1836 alone, over 20 million acres sold. In 1835, under President Jackson, the national debt was paid down to $38,000, the only time in American history the debt has ever been almost fully eliminated. File 5. The emergency measure. By 1861, the Civil War changed everything. War Department spending reached a documented $80 million a month by the war's end. Tariff revenue, dependent on trade, collapsed under blockade. So Congress did what the founders built a wall against. The Revenue Act of 1862, signed by Lincoln, created the first real income tax, 3% on incomes between $600 and $10,000, 5% above that. It also created the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, the direct ancestor of today's IRS. But this was labeled, on the record, a temporary wartime measure. And in 1872, true to that promise, Congress repealed it. File 6. The court strikes back. For the next 2 decades, tariffs and sin taxes on alcohol and tobacco funded roughly 90% of the government again. But inequality was rising fast. In 1894, Congress tried a peacetime income tax again, 2% on incomes over $4,000. In 1895, the Supreme Court struck it down, 5-4, in Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust Company, ruling it an unapportioned direct tax. Documented dissent from Justice Henry Brown called it a surrender of the taxing power to the wealthy. File 7. The Amendment. The wall the founders built in 1787 finally came down through the same document that raised it. On February 3, 1913, the 16th Amendment was ratified, giving Congress explicit power to tax income directly. No apportionment required. The Revenue Act of 1913 followed months later, 1% on incomes above $3,000, topping out at 7% above $500,000. In its first year, it collected $71 million. Only 3% of households owed anything at all. File 8. What changed? By World War I, the top rate had climbed to 77%. By 1943, withholding was introduced, taxes deducted before a worker ever saw the money, making the tax nearly invisible. Today, individual income and payroll taxes together account for documented figures over 90% of federal revenue. Tariffs, which once funded the entire government, now bring in roughly 1.5%. So close the file and look at what's verified. A constitutional wall deliberately built to block direct taxation. A century of tariffs, land sales, and one violent rebellion holding that wall in place. A temporary wartime tax, repealed exactly as promised. A Supreme Court ruling that struck it down entirely. And one amendment that quietly rewrote what the American government was allowed to become. The founders did not build a small government by accident. They built a wall around it on purpose. The story of how that wall came down, piece by piece, over more than a century, is documented fact, not legend. This has been Archives Unknown. File remains open.